Supply and demand are important ideas in economics. Supply refers to how many units of a product that consumers are interested in producing and selling. And the demand refers to how many units consumers are interested in buying. And both of those quantities depend on the price. So if you increase the price, consumers aren't going to want to buy as many units. They'll want to buy fewer units if the price is higher. On the other hand, if the price is higher, then suppliers can make more money on each unit, so they might be interested in diverting some of their manufacturing resources into producing more units, since doing so can get them more money. And so as price increases, suppliers are interested in selling more units. So supply and demand are both related to the price. We call the relationships demand functions and supply functions. So it turns out that in basic economic theory, in a free market, the market price will end up being the price where the demand function and the supply function agree, because a higher price would result in a production surplus, units being being produced that never get sold, and a lower price would result in an unmet demand, more units being demanded than are available. So let's take a look at how this works with an actual example. Suppose we are using the function price equals quantity squared plus 8 times the quantity plus 16 to model the supply. So this is the relationship between the price that you're charging and the quantity being demanded, the quantity being produced. And then you have a demand function given by a similar relationship. Again, P is price and Q is quantity. So what will the market price end up being when you have this relationship between the supply and the demand? Well, we want to figure out when the two functions agree, so we want to know when their graphs intersect. So what we do is we take the two functions and find the intersection by solving this system of equations. One method for solving a system of equations that works nicely when you have powers of a variable is the substitution method. So what we can do is eliminate one of the variables. For example, we can eliminate p if we replace every p with an expression in terms of q. So in this equation, instead of writing a p, I can replace it with this expression, 216 minus 2q. And doing that produces this equation. Instead of a p on the left, I have 216 minus 2q. And the right side hasn't changed. So that's a new equation, and it only involves one variable. It only involves q. So I should expect to be able to solve this, and it turns out I can. It's a quadratic equation. If I write everything in standard form with all the variables and constants on one side and a 0 on the other side, then I can try to solve this by using the quadratic formula or by factoring. I've chosen an example here that factors easily, and as a result of factoring, I can solve for q. So either q minus 10 is 0 or q plus 20 is 0. So that means either q is 10 or q is negative 20. But this doesn't make sense in this context. It's a solution of the equation, but it does not correspond to a real solution of the application problem because you can't sell negative 20 units. Only the positive solution makes sense. So that's the answer here. We want to sell 10 units. What will the price be if we're selling 10 units? What price will create a demand for 10 units? So you plug that into either of the other equations. Here I'm using the demand function. plug in 10 for Q in the 216 minus 2Q formula, and that gives you 196. That's a price. So 10 was the quantity, and 196 is the price. So what we've figured out here is at a price of 196 units, there'll be a demand for 10 units, and that will exactly match the supply that's available when the price is 196. So that is called the market equilibrium. Supply and demand are equal when the price is 196 units. In that case, the number of units that are supplied and demanded will be 10. And we can illustrate this again with a graph. So the blue function we see here is the supply function graph. And as expected, it's an increasing function. As price increases, quantity increases. They both go up together because the higher the price, the more suppliers are interested in providing that product. On the other hand, the demand, which is shown here in black, is decreasing because in order to sell more units, you have to lower the price compared to if you wanted to sell fewer units.